mental health and Magic the Gathering.
Next on Eternal Durdles. Before we get started, I want to give a quick thanks and appreciation out there to all the Durdle Maniacs that support us on Patreon. Without these people, the podcast could not afford the production upgrades and time we devote to it. If you appreciate the content we create, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/EternalDurdles. Now on to the show. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me this week, Ryan Nicholas. Ryan, how are you?
Nice to meet you. I almost cut you off there. I'm sorry about that. I was like, wait, what am I going to say? My name is Ryan Nicholas, aka TRONISBAD on all social medias. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you here. So we're here. We've got you here this week. Let me just quick run down your accolades here. You're known as TRONISBAD on all the social medias. You play Tron. You do play Death Shadow in Scam, as it were, in Legacy.
I do.
You're an MTG ambassador, which is awesome. But I think what I want to tackle is you run sort of an initiative called BetterDaysMTG. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I am one part of two parts to BetterDaysMTG. I founded that with a dear friend of mine, Hobbs Q, on all socials. Hobbs also runs the Goblin Lore podcast. I never thought to do anything like this, honestly. Hobbs reached out to me one day because he had noticed that I was making just a bunch of videos day to day. So a little preface. I've been posting a picture of a cup of coffee every day, every other day for over 3 years now, like way before I even started doing any of this magic stuff, and just kind of like as a little boost to myself and anyone else that wanted to read it. And I always have a tagline at the end. It's whatever it is that I'm saying, and then at the very bottom is my tag is raise them high and raise hell. But within that little post, I basically go over either a focus that I want people to focus on throughout the course of the day, or B, something that I've been struggling with, or something that I feel vulnerable enough to give into that vulnerability to talk about publicly, because I treat this as basically my shout into the void, my journal. My therapist has always told me, hey, Ryan, try writing stuff down when you think of it, when it's happening. And that never really works for me as far as like a journal type thing went. So basically just like me shouting outwards has always been my kind of release for that kind of thing. So lo and behold, I transitioned everything over to Twitter, where I started like picking up a little bit of a following. My Twitter is actually still very new. I started this Twitter at the beginning of 2023 as just like a magic Twitter, just where I could like post my grinder results or post like decks that I was playing. And I never expected any of this to happen, which I'm very, very thankful and very grateful for. But when I started posting my pictures online of whatever it is that I wanted to focus on, I was actually at MagicCon Minneapolis, and Alan from Mental Misplays, big shout out to Alan.
Oh yeah.
We went out for food. He and I one night. What was the place that we went to? I forget what place we went to, but it was this like really, really good, just random hole in the wall, like dive bar, but with some of the best cheeseburgers that we've ever had. They were literally in the middle of the cheeseburger filled with cheese. It was great. But he said, hey, like, have you ever thought just doing what you're doing, but making a video out of it? And I said, no, I've not. I've never felt kind of like comfortable enough to do like a video thing. And me personally, I've always been comfortable being at the front of a room or talking to a crowd or just talking to a bunch of people based off of the backgrounds that I come from. So I come from a background of I used to be a touring musician, so I would play to people. But I thought about what he said, and then directly the week after, I posted the very first video of my videos, and it was received really, really well. Now, fast forward about like from Minneapolis up until maybe like a month and a half ago, give or take, Hobbs reached out to me and said, hey, I love what you do. I'm inspired by the stuff that you've been putting out. Like, it's made me want to sit down in front of a camera and just press record. Do you think that you could put it under like an umbrella tag? Like, would you ever do that? And I was, again, talking to my friend, no, I never thought of that. So the videos, the Better Days MTG, I owe all of that to my friends, to my peers. And Hobbs was like, shout out some names, and we were running out some names like mental health, magic, or like something like that. But like realizing that a lot of those terms were already like coined by other hashtags of people trying to do similar things, which I love. But there was nothing like for us until I said, well, you know what? I'm always just trying to give somebody a better day. I'm trying to have a better day myself. So why don't we do Better Days MTG? And there, Better Days MTG was born. And myself and Hobbs Q have been doing nothing but posting these videos with kind of like no expectation of anyone to be involved. But now if you click on that hashtag, you're seeing like hundreds of people that are like becoming involved in this, and it's a beautiful thing, because what I've wanted to do is I just wanted to talk about stuff that was bothering me, and I wanted somebody to be able to relate to it. And now everyone is getting their stories out, finding that there are other people that can relate to what they're going through. And it's been really, really cool. So that's what Better Days MTG basically has been.
Well, that's awesome. I have to say the origin story really resonates with me. I've been blogging or shouting into the void since like 2008, just because I wanted to get my voice out there, just to get it out of my head, as it were, And I think that there's a lot in there that really appeals to me. Just being able to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to sit in front of a camera, which we're doing now. I've been doing for the last 7 years, and a lot of that is just to be able to talk it out, And I think it's super important to be able to just like have that sort of an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond Better Days, with what you guys are doing, what other steps are you guys taking with this? We know that Better Days is about mental health, but could you elaborate a little bit further on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Hobbs actually, I personally have not touched any of it, but Hobbs made a Twitter for Better Days MTG, and I got the follow from it. I'm like, nice. Hobbs is doing the thing. So I'm pretty happy about that. So basically, if you go to that Twitter, you will now see all of the reposts of everyone else's stories. And I think that's really cool to compile them all into one place, to archive them. But as far as the reason or in depth of like the why behind it, is because my background in Magic, I've been playing Magic since 2000, and I got into Magic during Scars of Mirrodin, when the Scars of Mirrodin and
2009,
2009, 2010, when the Scars of Mirrodin Besieged faction box came out, where it was like packs from both sets. Yeah. I remember that because I'm sorry, there was was it New Phyrexia? It was New Phyrexia right before that, right? Or New Phyrexia was after that?
I think New Phyrexia is after, right?
Yes.
The Scars happened, then New Phyrexia is born.
So it was very, very tail end of Scars, beginning of New Phyrexia was when I was playing. Because the first ever pack of Magic that I ever bought was a New Phyrexia pack, and it's like a love story, you know what I mean? Back when mythic rares were very rare, and back when foil mythic rares were very, very rare, my pack had a non-foil Sword of Worm piece and a foil Karn Liberated. So it's like, yeah, that was a pack. Back in the day, that was a pack. Oh, yeah. That was like a plus like almost $120 pack right there. But when I started playing, my friends and I learned how to play Magic from extremely competitive players. I won't go into like name dropping everybody, but
sure.
I very, very competitive players. One of my previous housemates that I used to live with is a previous Pro Tour champion. And that's how I learned how to play Magic. When I first learned how to play Magic, I sat down in front of my friend Phil. Phil passed away, but was an incredible person. He taught me how to play Magic. And he sat me down and he said, okay, here's the deck that you're playing with. And I was playing with a pre-constructed Golem deck. And Phil goes, all right, and you'll understand this. Phil goes, I'll play Grindstone, I'll play Painter Servant, I will call Candy Smith Apple Green, mill the top two cards of your library. Okay, now do it again. And now do it
repeat.
again. And I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. This was the very first game of Magic that I had ever played. Period. I played a pre-constructed deck versus a legacy deck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where my love of legacy really comes from. That was the first experience that I ever had playing with Magic, period. So within the first month and a half of me learning how to play was during a PTQ season. And I played in my first PTQ a month and a half into Magic. So I never had the opportunity to play kitchen counter Magic or swing with vanilla 6/6s or swing with a Visidrix, anything like that.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with competitive Magic. But the thing that no one ever talks about is the mental aspect of the game itself.
Yeah.
Whether you're playing with your friends as kind of just like a release, or if you are playing this game to get to another, no pun intended, but plane of competition, to be the best that you can be, to win now on RCQ, to win regional championship, to win the Pro Tour, to become to go to the Mythic Invitational on Arena. There's always some way or another that you are trying to better yourself at this game if you are being a competitive player. And it is so mentally diminishing at points because you are hyper fixating and you are focusing and you are testing and you're losing sleep, that you are not taking care of yourself, and nobody talks about that. And that's what I wanted to talk about. That's why I want to talk about the things that I'm talking about, to show competitive Magic players that, hey, you can grind as much as you can, but we are still friends, and there are people that are willing to listen to the stuff that you are struggling with, and that you don't have to go through this mental fortitude building on your own. So that's kind of like why I've been doing it, is because in competitive Magic, people talk about the amount of testing they're doing. People are talking the amount of fun that they're having traveling and going to all these high competitive level REL events, but no one is talking about the fact that you are constantly getting frustrated, you are losing sleep, and you are getting stressed, and you are getting upset over your results of you missing top 8 on 0.9th percentile of a breaker, and that is just so mentally deteriorating. It's insane. So
Yeah.
that's
I think an interesting sort of delineation here is that we all do know that Magic is a very mental game,
yeah.
but what you're really getting at here is the emotional aspect of Magic the Gathering, and I think that's really important and something we don't talk about enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I could go back. I've been playing since 1995, and there are different points in my career in the game that I can mark. Like as a kid, I had a little bit of a kitchen table session before I got into tournaments, because tournaments just didn't exist really where I was. So when I started playing in tournaments, you do realize that like you get into that mental zone, and I can remember the first couple of tournaments I had being super nervous, just shaking,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff, and that stuff that like that's the baseline of what we're talking about here. But then once we get into I think this is something that you might possibly be getting at too. You can get into sort of a toxic area. We talk about the salt a lot, but like you can start to get into a toxic area where that competitiveness can take over parts of your life, and it's not that's not healthy.
Oh, absolutely. You see the funny captions, or you see the funny screen grabs that comp players and take on MTG Online, and they'll post and they'll tag like whatever salt off, whatever that Twitter account is.
This guy's mad at me.
Yeah. This guy, whoever that they're talking to, whatever target audience that is, of just people tilting off, and that is so real. But at the same time, it's like I've had people tilt off at me so many times on MidGo that I don't want to share it, because it's like I get it. I understand where you're coming from. You're angry. Like you're angry at a game that has a lot of variance. You think that this person that is not as good as you are, which that's a whole other conversation. That's like kind of a respect thing, where you think that maybe you're better than somebody, and you're just like, why am I not winning? So you take it out on yourself, and then you in turn you're also taking it out on whoever it is that you're playing against, and it becomes this completely just unhealthy mindset of. And I could go on a tangent about this, of like people online talking about how upset it makes them to see that there are all these people being super disrespectful for those same people to be doing that same thing to other people in their private discords, which is another completely different conversation. But it becomes such a toxic environment of not approaching your mental health within a game the way that you should be approaching it, because once you can get your emotions under wrap, and I've had this joking conversation. I actually joked about this with one of my opponents this past Monday when I was playing Modern. um, I lost in the match. I was playing against this really nice kid, and he kept apologizing when I lost. I said, "Why are you apologizing? You played your cards the way that they're supposed to be played. I lost. I didn't draw the cards. You drew way better than me. You played better than I did. Your deck did what it was supposed to. My deck fell apart. Like, it's fine." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I feel bad, but no. Like, you won. This is okay." I stopped getting mad about Magic. I want to say like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago when I finally just like snapped. It was like at the tail end of like the shutdown from the pandemic, where I was playing against one of my best friends, and God, I love him to death, but he still salts off all of the time, and he's a very, very good Magic player. And what kind of like flipped my switch was like playing against him, and him salting off against me, who's like one of his best friends. And that's when my switch flipped, and I'm like, I don't care about these results anymore. I mean, granted, I care about the results if it like progresses me further into my competitive Magic career,
but not at the expense of your friendships.
Exactly.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, not at the expense of like how somebody else is feeling. The way that I approach Magic these days is I will play against you in a way that you will always want to have another game with me again.
Yeah.
Play like you want to be invited back, like all of the time. So the conversation that I had with my opponent, he was like, "You're like not upset." I'm like, "No, I'm like not upset." I stopped caring about getting mad at variance, because no one is good at being lucky. No one is good at being a luck sack. No one is good at drawing cards better than you or I are. So it's like I am sorry. Or I could go, like I said, I could go on about that.
Well,
but
I think that's actually something that's kind of great about we're a legacy podcast. About the legacy community is a lot of people that are in this community are older folks.
Yeah.
Older. I'm 43. And we've exhausted all of that mental energy on like, I'm trying to make the Pro Tour or whatever. And Legacy is just not about that anymore. Like Legacy is a prestige format that you play because you want to be a part of the community.
Man, it is my favorite format.
Yeah, and maybe you get a chance every, so often to like hit the Pro Tour. There's a Grand Prix, something like that. But most of us are not playing for those stakes anymore. We're playing because we love the game, right? So if we go to Eternal Weekend, and if you don't, top 8 Eternal Weekend, there's other stuff to do, like we're there to see our friends, and because the events are so few and far between, we're there to celebrate the format, celebrate our friends and stuff like that. So I used to be very competitive. I got banned for 5 years for how competitive I was.
Oh, geez.
That's a whole other story.
Right.
But that was because, I got into that mentality, and, you get to a place where the only thing that matters is winning,
Right.
And that can screw you up really bad. And once you get to that point, there's very few things that can break you out of that cycle. I was lucky in that I paid very little ultimately for my mistakes in that regard. But when you get to that point, it's very hard to break out of that cycle. And I think that that's something that people don't talk about enough. It's why actually I think that there was a really interesting point in Vegas. They were talking about the history of the Pro Tour. And, they eventually in the history of the Pro Tour, it always breaks down to the wild west of Magic, the days when cheating was like a thing. Yeah. And, and they were talking about Sheldon and how he kind of reined a lot of that in. But one of the things that I want to say Mike Turin brought up was that a lot of people that cheat, initially they cheat because they believe that they deserve those wins, which is a wild take to just be like, in this game of randomness, I don't deserve to have to even play in the first couple of rounds. I think that,
that's wild.
But that's a I don't want to say it's a disease, but that is a fracture of the mind. Like that's something that like you need if you're playing at that level and you think that you just deserve wins because you're somehow better than people, that's just such a wild take. And that's the sort of stuff, there's been a lot of talk about cheating lately. And one of the things was people were like, we can't keep treating cheating like it's a crime. We have to treat it like it's an addiction. And I think that a lot of that, I don't know that I necessarily 100% agree with that, because some people just, some people will never learn.
Right.
But I think just if we're looking at the course of how we treat drug addiction and stuff like that, we've started to turn the corner on a lot of these topics, and I think that this is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely get what you're saying. There's an entire ideology behind like Reformation, but to an extent, like it only goes so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's really dependent on the judges, and I absolutely love the judges. I think that the judges are one of the most vital parts of the Magic community. It's wild the concept to hear like everything that's going on. But again, that's a completely opposite conversation. But I think that a lot of that has to do with like who's there and who's seeing what's going on, and whoever is the person that is caught cheating. I do personally believe that there needs to be they need to be dealt with in some kind of way, because it brings a level of negativity to the environment. And that's just, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. It's terrible for the game, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so getting back to the emotional health, mental health aspect of the game, it's just something that we don't. I think that we underplay and undervalue in the game, and I can't count the number of times I've seen a friend after a match at a Grand Prix or whatever, and I'm just like, hey man, like what's wrong, and they're just bugging out about like this is a game, like I always tell people when they're getting kind of spun out, I'm like, hey, like this is your day off. This is your day off, like you don't have to, like you of course you don't have to be here, but you chose to be here to have fun instead of going to work, like I used to bartend, so if I was taking off on a Saturday to go play a Magic event, I was down $200 just to start.
Listen, I get you. I was a bartender for 5.5 years, so I understand.
Yeah. So like, I was actively choosing to be there, and anytime I was like, hey man, this is my day off. Like I'm having a great time.
Yep.
Win or lose, I'm just here to have fun, Yep. Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy, and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned. So I want to pivot to your Magic career.
Sure.
So you're in Modern, you're a Tron player, and in Legacy you play.
I play 2 decks in Legacy. Well, let's talk about Modern first. Yeah. So my Tron story started in, I want to say it was around like 2014 when I had first like really loved Tron, really been exposed to Tron. But I was playing Boggles, and I was playing Boggles in a room filled with Jund when Jund was like the most prominent deck in the format. And I remember at a Star City event, like way back in the day with the Star City Tour, when you scrub out of the main event and then you play in like one of their really big side events. I top 8'd one of those really big side events. There was like 140 people in it or whatever, and I was playing Boggles, and the reason why I found such success in the room full of Jund was because I was playing 3 Dryad Arbors inside, so they could go Liliana, sacrifice your creature, and I would just fetch for the Dryad Arbor.
I was about to say, did they just not play Liliana? Yeah, but there you go, the Dryad Arbors. Yeah.
Yep, I fetched for the Dryad Arbor, and I sacked that creature instead of my beefed up creature. But around that time, I was playing at a local event at this place called Highlander Games. Shout out Highlander in Boonton, New Jersey. They're absolutely incredible. I sat down against my round 1 opponent. I was playing Boggles, and my opponent goes Urza's Tower. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that does. And they go, Urza's mine. I'm like, all right, I don't know what that does either. Now they have Urza's power plant on turn 3, and I have I have like a 4/4 that has a couple of auras on it. And my opponent goes Wormcoil Engine. And I'm like, what just happened? You just tapped 3 lands, and you have a 6-mana, 6/6, Death Touch, Lifelink. You get 2 more dudes. How do I even like get through that? Like, I don't have a Spirit Link. I don't have the stuff to get through right now. And I got my butt handed to me because they actually what they did within the turn to 2 turns after that was they Mindslaver locked me because they also played in Academy Ruins.
Yep,
and they played Mindslaver, and then they kept cracking Mindslaver and cracking Academy Ruins, and I couldn't play anything. I'm like, at the end of that, I lost very swiftly, which I shouldn't have because I was playing Boggles, but I didn't know how to play against this random like colorless deck, well, like blue splash colorless deck. And I was like, what deck is this? And they were just like, this is Tron. And I'm like, can I see it? And I just like that immediately fell in love. Have not put the deck down since. Granted, times were tough when cards in Tron were much more expensive, so I would like buy and sell. And now I have a fully foiled 75 of Tron, and I have every variation of Tron in foil in a box, just in case I want to play the other versions. So I'll like never get rid of it at this point. That's my one deck that like I would just never get rid of now. But yeah,
I started playing in Chronicle, like when Chronicles came out. Mm-hmm. So the OG reprint set, and I remember looking at Power Plant, Mine, and Tower, and being like, this is too Rube Goldberg for me. This is never going to happen. Yeah, I mean, obviously there were a lot of things that. One, there weren't any great artifacts during this era.
Right.
Like the best thing you could do was like, oh, cool, Urza's Avenger. 6
mana,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember distinctly the first time I played against Tron. I got into Modern on Merfolk, and by the time I had seen Tron, I was already onto Blue-White Red Control.
Okay.
So the first time someone slammed down a Karn against me, I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but Mana Leak. Absolutely not. Yeah. That's not happening.
Right.
I don't know. It's a Planeswalker. It's got to be bad for me. But we had a guy at my shop, Jimmy Tronlands, we used to call him.
Wow.
And
nice.
and that dude played Tron, and he would he'd get the Mindslaver lock, or he'd restart the game with Karn or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that deck has been a menace since 2014, if not even earlier. Since, I guess, since Karn Liberated came out.
Yeah, that and like prior to that, like if you look at how Tron was right before Karn Liberated came out, it was a Tooth and Nail deck, which was like wild. And you would just Tron to Tooth and Nail and put out your 2 like biggest creatures. I believe I forget what cards it was. I'm trying to pull up. I know that Sundering Titan was one of your targets, but it was Sundering Titan and like whatever, like X other creature that you just put out, and it was a Tooth and Nail.
I can't remember because I used to play. I played Magic Online when Tooth and Nail was released, and I remember people playing it, and I can't remember what the other creature was, but it was always just like, I guess I lose all my lands.
Yeah, and now it was that giant Colossus creature that you got 2 of, I think. My gosh, I forget. But anyway, it was a Tooth and Nail deck, and that was like really cool, and I had no idea about the deck at all. And then when I found out about Tron, I did an entire deep dive, and I saw all the lists of how Tron won 2 Pro Tours back to back, and then I saw that Tron was now falling off, like going years into the future. But here I am. I've been playing Tron Into the Sun since, and now Tron is one of the best decks in Modern again, and that makes me so stoked. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's a menace. Like that's a deck that just I haven't played Modern competitively for a minute. Mm-hmm. But that is has been a deck, since I started in, I want to say 2012, and it's always there. Even if it's on the periphery, it's always just there.
Correct.
Waiting to get
Tron is that deck that I think in Modern will always last through the test of time, because at the beginning of when COVID started happening, there was the whole Ancient Stirring scare. Like they were scared of Ancient Stirrings randomly and was like, maybe we should ban Ancient Stirrings out of Modern. Why? What what do you gain with
I
that?
I remember that there was always there were several like points when people were like, "This has got to get banned from Tron." I'm still on the "Man, Tron's too strong"
Sure,
stage, but I
sure.
don't have any dog in this fight.
Right.
But I'm trying to think. There was that, and then like I can't remember. There was like maybe it was Karn. People were like calling for like, okay, just get Karn instead, and then they only have like the other things to get.
Right.
But yeah, it's just wild. Like there was a point in time when people were like, ban Ancient Stirrings.
Multiple times. Multiple times.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And like the recent Modern bannings too, or unban of preordained, there were even whispers then that you needed to ban like Expedition Map or something. Why? Like how hard was Tron hurting you at your local
Oh yeah.
meta
I mean,
that
I
you
felt it. I felt it, man. I was on Scape Shift at the time.
okay. All right.
So if you didn't have, like you had to have like, remand into remand
Sure,
to just
sure,
like
sure,
stay
sure.
in the game, then they're just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll get one of your lands,
Mhm.
and you're like, no,
Yeah.
and you
So-
have no pressure, like.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Tron. So let's talk Legacy then, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk about Death Shadow. Death
I
Shadow,
love-
a deck that again has been on the periphery for a very long time, ever since I want to say Death Shadow,
Mhm.
but has only recently kind of come into the limelight.
So I will admit I have not been a long time Shadow player. I have been so my first deck in Legacy I played Maverick. I played Maverick in it's funny how like I told you I started around like 2009, 2010. I had first built and completely built Maverick by 2010. Like I was just like I was in there. But
Yeah.
at the same time you could buy Savannas for 50
Yeah, like
bucks.
15 bucks.
They were
Yeah,
like 50 bucks, 50 to 100
they weren't
bucks. Not at
expensive.
all. I remember buying I remember 2012. I bought a playset of Portuguese Force of Wills. Those were expensive. Force of Wills were very expensive. But I bought a playset of Scrublands for I think $240.
Yeah, I remember buying
Wild.
Trops off of a guy for $100 a piece. I just
Absolutely
was like, here's
nuts.
$400.
Absolutely nuts. But I started playing Maverick, and then I quickly got off of Maverick, and I did not want to play Maverick anymore because I saw somebody at Grand Prix. I believe it was Grand Prix Worcester, that, and it was a Legacy Grand Prix, and somebody had their entire playmat covered with cards, and I'm like, whatever deck that is, I want to play that. There seems like there's so much going on, and it was Dredge. And I fell in love with Dredge, and I fell in love with old manaless Dredge. So I bought LEDs when they were $70 a pop, and I
Nice.
filled that deck up, dredging grave trolls away, and getting all my tutus for my bridges. It was absolutely phenomenal.
That
And
is Legacy
then-
on hard mode because every game 2 and 3 is just like a wash for
horrendous. Yeah, that was Legacy on hard mode, and I fell in love with that deck. So let's fast forward to Grand Prix New Jersey. That was the Legacy Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was 20. I want to say 2015.
2015.
That was the Treasure Cruise Grand Prix.
Treasure Cruise Grand Prix. One of the best playmats of all time is the Brainstorm playmat. I had a very unfortunate Grand Prix. So I was playing Dredge, like I said, and I was testing for that event nonstop. The night before the Grand Prix, we are testing at our friend's bar because they owned a VFW. So we would like play Magic there, we would draft there, we would drink there. And I was testing with everyone else. I wake up for the next morning for the event, and I go to register my deck list, and my deck is gone, and I don't have my entire Legacy deck. Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, I don't have my Legacy deck, so I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I left it at the bar. I left my entire Legacy deck there. I can't play Legacy anymore. Like I was LEDs, Mox Diamonds, everything.
Dude,
but again, everything was like super cheap, right?
Yeah.
They're not Mox Diamonds now, they're not LEDs now. And I get a phone call from my friend Mike, and Mike goes, "Hey, you left your Legacy deck at the bar. I have it." I'm like, "Oh, this is amazing. but I won't be there until the middle of the second round. I'm like, oh, okay, so I can't even play. But I played, and I played a meme deck. I registered.
Were you the guy who played the islands?
No.
Okay.
I was the guy that played the forests, and I played the Lost in the Woods deck that Star City Games tweeted about because I registered 56 forests. I registered 52 forests, 4 fogs, and 4 Lost in the Woods.
This is actually what I was thinking when I said the islands deck. This was it. This is the Lost in the Woods deck. I remember this. Yeah,
that was me. I won round one. Amazing. I won round one. And because my opponent conceded, because they realized what was going on. I forgot what my opponent was playing, but they conceded because like they couldn't do anything. Because for game one, I drew the 5 lands fog Lost in the Woods and I just I had it. So I did that. I won round one and then I dropped. And then Star City Games tweeted about it because they took a picture of my deck list or whatever. They're like, we can't believe that Lost in the Woods is 1-0. And I'm like, well, I'm done now because I can't play. I'm not doing this. But that was wild.
I played Rug Delver and it was a dog.
Yeah.
I was playing Hooting Mandrills because I thought that was going to be my super spicy tech. I did end up trading in that playmat and the sleeves to complete my foil set of Nimble Mongooses, which were on the low at that point because everyone.
You know what's very funny to me is that you say that is that I literally to the left of me, and don't ask me why, but there's a playset of Nimble Mongooses literally right here for no reason. I don't know why, but yeah,
they know, dude. They know. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your experience with Death Shadow.
So yeah, Death Shadow has been very, very fast. One of my favorite decks. I love the ability that you can just you can play 4 to 5 shock lands in a legacy deck and only have to have 1 underground sea. And that's another thing. And this is an entire other conversation that you and I had recently.
Yeah, we've had this conversation.
Accessibility. Accessibility is another conversation. But if you are playing Shadow in Legacy, Shadow is actually, in my opinion, one of the more accessible legacy decks because you really only need 1 dual land, and the rest
you don't even need that dual land. That's just helpful.
Correct.
It's helpful to have.
Correct. You're really going all in on the Force of Wills, the Dazes, Wastelands. But the other utility of the deck is it's a beefed up modern deck is what it is. But the deck is really strong. You can play against the entire format. When I first picked up Shadow, was during Eternal Weekend last year when Mono White Initiative was really good. And I was one of the people that were just like, you know what, I'm going to play Snuff Out. Snuff Out's really good. And Snuff Out was really good against the Mono White deck. So Shadow had a really, really good matchup against Mono White Initiative. And I've been playing it since. I absolutely love Shadow. I'm gonna continue to play Shadow. I'm probably going to be playing Shadow this next Eternal Weekend. If not ACAST.
I'm on 8cast for Eternal Weekend, I think. But so I started playing Shadow about 2 years ago. I took it to an SCG event in Philly, and I was like, you know what? Let me just see how this works. And it was a little bit before 8cast really got up there. I think it was before Neon Dynasty. And I was looking at lists, and I saw this list that included Berserk, and I was like, well, that's interesting because 8cast because Death Shadow is a deck like Rug Delver very much that plays like the Delver plan. You're a little bit of the fun police. You've got the Wastelands, you've got the Dazes, the Force of Wills, but you're a dog to elves. Any deck that can sort of infinitely block you, it doesn't matter how big your Death Shadows are, right?
It's true.
But if you get to play with Berserk, you're just like, oh, are you blocking and then bouncing that with your Wirewood Symbiote? Okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to Berserk. And now my 12/12 is a 24/24.
Yeah, that's crazy.
With Trample.
Trample. Yeah, that is wild. Oh, also the fact that you can turn Shadow into a Murktide Reanimator list is wild.
Yeah.
Just the fact that from the Lord of the Rings set, Troll of Khazad-dûm is just one of the best cards in Legacy, in my opinion, at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because it turns your Wastelands on. You can just play that opening hand with Wasteland, Troll, and then all of your blue and black spells, and you can swamp cycling to get whatever you need off your Wasteland, put it in the yard, and then reanimate it on turn 2.
Yeah,
what is
wild.
like that's crazy, and it has Super Menace, and it's a 6/5. It's just like Shadow rules, scam rules,
Shadow is
legacy
such
rules.
such a cool deck.
Yeah.
I know you've got to head out soon. So I want to. Where should people find you online?
Any social media that you have, I am on, and I can be located at TRONISBAD. The only thing that is different on TikTok is somebody has my. I feel like somebody grabbed my name, just like
Oh no!
like one of those stupid things.
Well, we'll put that link below too. We'll
Yeah,
have all
yeah,
the
yeah.
links below.
Yeah,
So that way
I'll
you'll
make
be able
sure
to find
that you
on
have
the
all my
social
links.
medias.
But it's Tron is bad at everything. TikTok is period. Tron is bad.
Yeah.
But that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure having you, and thanks so much. And I guess I've got my yerba mate here.
Hey, nice. I have my.
I'll let you do the honors here.
All right. So thank you so much, Zach, for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting me. I'll kind of end it as I end one of my videos. To anyone watching, you are kind, you're caring, you're 1 in a million, you are unique, and you're one of the baddest on the face of the planet. Raise them high and raise hell.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Have a good one, everybody. Thanks. Hey, thanks for watching, and check out this Death Shadow deck tech. You're going to love it. Later.